Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith. Pennsylvania relies on nuclear power more than any other state except Illinois, and there's talk of it growing. One way would be to revive 3 Mile Island, and it is some political support as electricity demand keeps building. Joining me today is a Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennon. Anthony, talk to us more about nuclear power. In Pennsylvania, that's kind of been on the decline in recent years, most famously with the closure of 3 Mile Island in central PA. So what's going on here? With the reversal in policy?
Yeah, so this is kind of a broader story about the energy grid and Pennsylvania's status as a energy exporter. The biggest source of energy in Pennsylvania, of course, is natural gas, but that's only been the case within about the last decade. Nuclear energy makes up 32% of Pennsylvania's electricity production. So this is something where, as we've been looking more to get into some sort of baseload energy and to something that is carbon-free, nuclear keeps popping up again and again. We're also seeing globally, there's talk of, by 2050, nuclear power basically almost tripling worldwide. And so this is something that's kind of a live wire here. And it's seen as we see more and more pressure on the energy grid here. As we switch, we see a growing demand. We see in other states pushing more solar and wind energy. More and more, there's this question of how reliable will our energy grid be? What happens if we hit a wall, if we have a situation where there's more demand than we have supply? How are we going to provide in the future? So we're seeing some talk among policymakers here in Pennsylvania about, could nuclear energy fill this gap? Could nuclear energy be something that's reliable, that's safe, and that also boosts the economy?
How easy would it be to basically turn TMI back on, to plug it back in? I mean, we know how hard it is to get new plants built in PA. We know how hard it is just to get new generation of any kind online. So how hard would this feasibly be?
The short answer is it would be hard, but everything else would be harder. Talking with Representative Tom Mahaffey, who's down in Hershey and 3 Mile Island is within his district, he argued, with where we're at as a nation and a commonwealth, the demand for clean energy, they can open 3 Mile Island and revamp it, put it in place quicker than a gas generation plant. That's really why it's so important to act now to get this in place. So basically, when you look at, any project, nuclear, coal, natural gas, solar, and wind, there's a lot of hurdles. You need to get a number of permits, and those get delayed. You need to do a number of environmental studies. You're always facing the threat of a lawsuit from some community group or other big player. And then once you get through all that, there's also delays of getting actually plugged into the energy grid. PJM, which serves Pennsylvania, 12 other states, and the District of Columbia, which makes up about 65 million people, are within this grid. They have a years-long delay for new projects getting plugged in and actually producing power and getting out there. So there are no easy or quick ways to do it if we don't do nuclear. But the fact that 3 Mile Island, it's built, there's some upgrades that need to be made, but there's at least some interest in this, and politically, it's more friendly than it's been probably in a few decades now. It wouldn't be immediate, but maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. It's hard to say, but it seems like there's some energy here to get this quicker than basically all the other options.
And there's definitely some concern here from some lawmakers that it's not if we should do this, but when, right? Like that time is of the essence here, really.
Yeah. Mahaffey again argued, we need an immediate flow of electricity on the grid now. If we don't get something in place like 3 Mile Island that produces 800, 900 megawatts in the next 5 years, we're going to have issues on that grid, and that's scary. So, there's PJM is going through a lot of growing pains like we see with a lot of other grids across the country. The problem with PJM is it stretches across 13 states. Places like Texas and California, they control their own grid. So they can set their policy, they can make changes, all that. But within PJM, there's 13 states. Some states are doing things that are going right against what other states are doing, and there's no one final authority to sort this stuff out. So the more that we ignore this or don't get more energy to the grid, the bigger the problem is going to be in 5 or 10 years.
Anthony, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.